Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. Guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from New York's Genghis Tron. The band's new album, Dream Weapon, will be released on March 26th via Relapse Records. So it's been over a decade, believe it or not, since Genghis Tron released their
2008. Is it 2008?
Yeah.
I was trying to rack my head back to when the last time I listened to them was.
I know. It's been a long
must
time.
have been about them. So
Board Up the House was their last album, and it was one of those albums that really put this band on the map and kind of marked them as a bit of a contender, you know, next to bands like Dillinger and Rollo Tomasi, Converge and stuff like that.
Yep.
And in fact, in a lot of ways, kind of like Sixth. I felt like Genghis Tron were just a smidge ahead of their time.
So far ahead of their time. So far. Yeah. Board Up the House had this like kind of mathy, kind of grindcore kind of traits to it, but they mixed it up with like synths and weird kind of experimental electronics and stuff. Not a band that had like huge like hooks to their music, but definitely one that were pushing boundaries and like weren't afraid to just fucking leave it all out there. They've had a couple of changes to the band since that last album. So we now have Tony Wolski of The Armed on vocals, and Sumac and Baptist's Nick Yashin on drums. Apologies if I mispronounced your name there. Dream Weapon was recorded and produced alongside long-time collaborator Kurt Ballou at God City Studio. Of course.
With additional production and engineering by Ben Chisholm and JJ Heath. So, when I heard they were putting out a new album, I was kind of expecting it to be a kind of evolvement of Board Up the House, like still kind of chaotic, but a more up-to-date version of kind of Genghis Tron, still kind of pushing boundaries and stuff. But then when I started to hear the singles being released, I was like, this doesn't sound like another Board Up the House type album. They had clearly like fully embraced their electronic side on this. This album is like basically like a kind of electronic space rock dream pop album, I suppose. Gone are pretty much all traces of the mathcore, the grindcore and hardcore, and now we have this like amalgamation of sounds that they touched on in their previous or their past release in some form, but they've pushed that kind of electronic side to its full. They've incorporated far more kind of melodic vocals into the mix, which is probably partly down to the fact they have a new vocalist in the band. And those hooks that were kind of missing from their previous incarnation are now far more kind of hardwired into this. But after kind of listening to this album, the pieces started to kind of fall into place. Because I was thinking, like, if you're a band like Genghis Tron that sounded the way they did back in like 2008, where do you go next with your sound? Like, if you take Dillinger for example, they started off exactly the same way, you know, very extreme, chaotic. The sound, it's all tangled up in weird time signatures and rhythms, but you'd heard the evolvement of them over the years. Their sound became slightly less complex, and it included far more kind of melodic hooks, musically and vocally. Genghis Tron have pretty much removed like all the kind of chaos and the kind of complexities of their sound as we knew it. They've taken the electronic synthy parts that they used throughout their old material and on like interludes, and kind of developed it into a brand new sound basically. So now they have like way less in common with bands like Dillinger and Converge, and more like, I suppose, more like in line with like the Black Queen or Nine Inch Nails or something like that. But it totally works. Like, and I think once you accept it, the fact that the new Genghis Tron comes without blast beats and like off-kilter riffs, it actually becomes a really kind of rewarding album. It's a very different experience than listening to like Board Up the House. This is far more calming and maybe introspective than almost kind of soundtrack-esque at times, if that makes sense. Quite hypnotic feeling, but a really easy listening.
which was not something, or not the case with the old Genghis Tron. Like that was like a band that you could listen to the album once and I'd be like, did I really lie down? With this, like I could put it on in the background and just do different things and play it, over and over. It was really easy to listen to. And to be fair, there are moments on the album where they do increase the intensity ever so slightly, not to the level that they used to. It's a bit more spacey, almost kind of desert rock at times than like mathcore, in my opinion. The guitars are far more subtle, but some of the drum fills and the rhythms do kind of lean into almost into a kind of proggy or kind of rocky feel at times, which I really liked. Alone in the Heart of Light was probably one of my favourite songs on the album. I love the synth sounds they picked for that track and the kind of almost kind of like swirling kind of atmosphere of the track. Plus it had some like almost, I kept thinking of like Phil Collins. It had these kind of like Phil Collins type fills on it. Put a smile on my face as a drummer. I was like, yes, more of that. So I really dug that. That was probably my favourite track.
I'd imagine like an homage to American Psycho. Dave's just standing there with a Phil Collins CD. Phil Collins, this guy.
One of the best things about this though was the production. I absolutely loved the production of this album. I think Kurt Ballou and the band have done a fantastic job. The overall feel and the atmosphere of the album is absolutely spot on. It's by far one of my favourite things about Dream Weapon. It does, and I was thinking about Duncan when I was listening to this, it does have a very like Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross type feel in places. Yeah. Like I said, very much like a kind of film score type feel, but I thought it worked extremely well with the band's new sound. It's a very kind of warm sounding album. It reminded me of, not so much musically, but just the sound of it. I don't know if you remember Fair Youth by Maybe She Will.
Yes.
It was a brilliant album, but had that kind of feel to it. But the drum sound on Dream Weapon's a bit more punchy, a bit better actually than Fair Youth. But it felt very similar to that album. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Not what I was expecting at all from Genghis Tron, but in some ways it was kind of better than I was expecting. I like the direction they've took this in, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of it. I'd go as far to say as it could be one of their best albums they've released. And I was kind of looking forward to the more of the kind of mathy type stuff, but this has really impressed me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Duncan, what did you make of this? I had a wee inkling that you might like this, but I'm not 100% sure, but I think you might.
I see this with complete... How do I word this? In all seriousness and complete sincerity,
this is not serious at all.
This is the best album I've heard this year.
Ooh!
Like, absolutely hands down the best album I've heard this year.
Interesting.
This is like pitch perfect. Like, everything about this is absolutely 100% something that I adore. I'm like you, like, as someone who remembers the old Genghis Tron, and not aware of the personal changes, so that doesn't answer some of the questions I was going to be coming with to this review. I was surprised how organically I took to the sound of it. Like, straight away, like right from the off, I was like, alright, cool, we're doing something. And the opening track is essentially just it's an introduction. And I was like, right, we'll see where we go. And then you kick into Pyrocene, which basically starts off like you're talking about 9 Inch Nails. It is. This is the second track I've heard this year, which is very, very, as in you are using that 9 Inch Nails drum beat. Like very, very much so. I'm trying to think of the song.
It's off the Downward Spiral. I don't remember which one.
No, it's also from Broken.
Oh, is it?
No, it's not actually. It's Burn. It's Burn from the Crow soundtrack.
Oh yeah, that's it.
It's exactly what it is. The beginning sounds very much like Burn. And which Pyrocene, Pyro is fire, Burn the track by 9 Inch Nails. Wonder if the band's put that together. They probably have, and they hate me for it. But yeah, like as soon as you kick into that, I was instantly like taken in by what was going on, and then the album just blew my fucking mind. Like absolutely blew my mind. There is so much going on in this, through the layering of synths, work on the guitar, the drums are fucking great. Vocally, really interesting. The vocalist does not overdo it on this album, which once again is a minor gripe with me. They play the balance between instrumental and and containing vocals very, very well on this release. You're talking about soundtracks. There are bits of John Carpenter in here. There's a bit of Tangerine Dream, Vangelis. There, it's taken all those elements and has a rich kind of there's a synthwave element to this, but the elements that we describe as being synthwave are not necessarily on a melody perspective. It's more to do with the stuff that's happening with the bass and the drums in the background is what really makes synthwave a genre. They've stripped all that out and actually just stuck with the stuff that I prefer, which is the melodic part of someone just playing the keyboard. It's all through here. The sounds at times reminded me of sort of like some of the composition and the specific sounds they went for are a bit colder, in line with something like Cult of Luna and Vertical, and then at the same time really warm and engaging, like some of the stuff done specifically by Nine Inch Nails, but it's later day Nine Inch Nails when Atticus Ross became more involved with the stuff they were doing. So primarily the kind of last two releases by Nine Inch Nails are elements definitely in there for sure. For me, Ritual Circle, which is the longest track in here, is a fucking revelation. I mean, play this at my funeral, honestly. See if I could go back and have it as my first dance. Yes, it would be a long first dance at my wedding, but by God, my wife wouldn't be in it. But it builds and it builds and it builds, and then it starts to get to screamy vocals about the midway point, and then it all strips out. And then you get this John Carpenter-esque little synth line that comes in. And I'm like, where's this going to go? And it keeps playing, and then a drum beat comes in. And I was like, oh, this is as good as it gets. This is as good as music gets. Front to back, this is fucking incredible. Kurt Ballou, you have once again nailed it. Like, I don't know how this guy does it. He seems to, like, whatever the band he works with, he seems to get the perfect sound. And none of his productions sound alike. That's the beauty of Kurt Ballou. Everything sounds like it's tailor-made for the band. There's no presets, there's nothing. Everything sounds pitch perfect. And this has exactly... I couldn't stop thinking of... This, to me, is what a band like Three Trapped Tigers would sound like. Less techy with vocals. Because that last Three Trapped Tigers album, which I think is a 5-star fucking album, I think it's incredible. And those guys need to come back and do something, because that album it was amazing. It's like this but elevated. I've listened to this album, and I shit you not, 6 times since I downloaded it 3 days ago. I listened to it 3 times today back to back. I fucking adore this. I think it's the high water. Honestly, see if we get to and I mean this, if we get to the end of the year and this isn't sitting number 1 for me, then I don't, it means something else has come out, which is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Like, I honestly have never been so fully invested in a release. This is everything about music that I love. I mean, like, they've captured the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm the synth guy on here. This should surprise no one. Like, I was actually giggling when I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder how bad Dave thinks I'm going to blow this on this release. And the answer is Deep Throat Dave, because it really is. I love their old stuff. I think their old stuff is challenging, and it's complex, and it's interesting, and at times very difficult to listen to. And I know what you're talking about, changes and movements and all the rest. That genre has kind of been done to death in the 10 years they've been away. And there are bands that have taken it to levels now that are... Pupil Slicer are a great example of that. Bands that have taken it to such an extreme level that them coming back... You know, why would they come back? It's like listening to Cult of Luna I mentioned earlier are a great example of that. They came back this year with a release which doesn't really sound like the last 2 things they did, but so definitely sounds like the best aspects of Cult of Luna. What Genghis Tron have done is, I think they very cleverly crafted an album which sounds at times almost referential of an older kind of more score-based style, specifically like kind of sci-fi movies of the 80s. And what they've done is they've taken that element and modernised it again in a way where I think they're ahead of the curve again, because there's so much of that synthwave stuff out there, or bands doing a great example. Carpenter Brute's a brilliant example of this, who's a guy that does that sort of stuff but will do a track with vocals and go a bit poppy or whatever. Genghis Tron have taken all those elements, brought them in and crafted a extremely rewarding listen, which can be easily just played in the background like you were talking about, or listened to at night. I've listened to this at midnight when the house is all quiet, headphones in, eyes closed, and just found myself completely absorbed by what they've done. It is absolutely fucking stunning. I'm so happy, because if you're going to come back after 10 years, you need to do something. You need to come back something, and how do you make yourself stand out? This is how you do it. You basically reinvent yourself. I'll be interested to see how many of their fans jump over with this, because I think it's a big transition from their old sound. I think that time will be really good, because I think they'll get a lot of new listeners in. I just hope that people appreciate the musicality in here, as opposed to it's not heavy anymore, because it isn't. But the musicality on it is a top fucking level. The way they layer up, and you have to really just kind of delve into some of the sections. The layered synths on here are doing amazing things with counterpoints, counter melodies. Just I could honestly talk easily for the length of this album, telling you why it's the best thing I've heard this year. But I feel we should hand it over to the Dream Killer, which could be a song on this. Dream Weapon, Dream Killer, could be.
Could be.
Yeah. Kyle, what did you think?
I hate this band. You both taking a drink and you both spat it back out. I like it.
But mine's is whiskey, so when it comes at your nose, it burns the nose hairs on the way out.
And I mean it in a good way. I hate them because it's just so good. It just makes you want to cry. It's just like, what? How did you take... I mean, I never heard of them before, but I could hear the mathcore in it. And like you said, the Dillinger stuff. I heard the influence, and I thought it was just an influence. I didn't know that's what they were doing previously. And now it just makes it even more amazing, because they pushed the electronic stuff so far forward, and it sounds like nothing else out there. It sounds like an 80s band was transported to the future and told not to suck, you know, by the producer. And the production is perfect. Natural fucking drums in 2021. I couldn't believe my ears. I really couldn't. I'm like, there is a drummer in this band and I can hear him playing. Oh my god.
I mean, there's an electronic kit in there as well.
Oh, of course, yeah, like, that's samples and stuff. But the drums are a dude hitting a fucking kit in time with the rest of the band, which is even more
the fills
amazing.
that Dave's talking about. I know exactly the bit you're on about, where it does like the toms and all the rest. And I was like, I know exactly what you mean. It does sound. It sounds.
But it fits. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And my first note is they love Nine Inch Nails, because the opening track it's Burn. Let's be honest.
Yes.
But then that hooked me in. I was in right away. I was like, it's a bit Nine Inch Nails, but on the other hand, it's fucking not.
Yeah.
No way. It's like they bring the heavier elements and the heavier guitars in, and they totally flip it around. It's not a metal band with a bit of synth. It's a fucking synth band with a bit of metal.
Yeah.
And it works perfectly.
Yes.
And they're not screaming all the time. Sometimes for me the vocals got a little bit whiny and annoying, but I'll skip past that, because the rest of it's super 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 good. And that song, the 10-minute song, what's it called? Ritual Circle. I could listen to that on repeat for the rest of my life and be happy. That thing is so like, what? That is such a rewarding listen. When you get to the end of it, you're like, you know, it's 10 minutes, but it doesn't feel like it.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's like, wow. Just like that. Like you were saying, I know exactly what you're saying what you mean when you said the thing about Phil Collins. It's like all the toms in that and everything. It was just fucking legendary, that song. Absolutely. I could gush all over this, but Duncan's already done it, so if he's deep throating it, I'm taking it to the lung.
I think this is what they call a review bukkake.
Yeah. Not kidding. And the synth work, I mean, I love synth. I own a couple of them and I love playing with them, and everything about this, especially the John Carpenter, definitely was in there. The intros, a couple of those songs are just like, you like Nine Inch Nails and 70s horror, so do I.
There's a couple of Sims as well, which they must be using the same equipment that Night Satan and the Loops of Doom.
Yeah,
because it's the same tones.
Yeah. Probably.
So
it just some of it, the layering of everything. I could talk about this forever and ever and ever. I'm just gonna say, I liked it, but I hate the band because they're just too fucking good. So stop. Let the rest of us catch up, you bastards.
I know. Imagine taking like 12, almost 13 years off and coming back with an album like this.
I wonder if this is a COVID thing. I wonder if this is us finally got the time to come back and do this. You know what I mean?
Does it say that on the promo sheet? Written in COVID.
Fucking better not be.
It seems weird. To me, we were talking about this. If you were in a band that had split or had went on hiatus, last year would have been the time that you should have come back together and written an album, because a lot of people were trapped at home. That's when you do it.
But then this is so ridiculously late. You'd have to be a genius to do that.
But I think the talent was always there. I think the talent, the talent for what they're doing has always been there, and I don't think they've stopped doing music. I think it's just they didn't do it under this guy's, because it was they were put on hiatus. It wasn't we've split up as a band. So I would imagine they've been doing other bits and bobs, but it's. I mean, it's. I'd get to the grades.
Get to the grades. Okay, let's do that. Ratings for Genghis Tron and Dream Weapon. Another really fucking good album. I would probably go pretty high on this, probably 4.5 out of 5 for me.
For a synth album from Dave, wow.
Yeah.
What? He's going mellow in his old age.
I know what's going on. Duncan,
that's a 5. I mean, you don't even need to add. That's the best album I've heard this year. It's 5.
5 for Duncan.
In case you can't see it at home, he's got the number 5 flashing above his head.
Literally, before we even did this call, if you did not think this album was a 5, you do not know me at all. It's feels like it was written for me. It
does. Yeah,
5.
And Kyle,
I'm gonna go 4.5. It's just too good.
Nice. Genghis Tron, Dream Weapon, out on March 26th on Relapse Records. If you want to check them out, it's facebook.com/Genghis Tron. I'll put a link to the band's Facebook and to their Bandcamp page in the description below. Let us know what you think. If you've heard the album, let us know your thoughts and opinions on it. Happy to hear them. That's a review. Thanks for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. We'll speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.
So